this is my presentation on Rakugo sit-down theater. So Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Robin Williams, these are just a few of the comedians of the past 20 years who have given our society laughter with their stand-up comedy acts. However, comedy gave us more than just laughter. In researching Rakugo sit-down theater, I've learned the importance of engaging the audience during the performance, creating an environment where the Rikugaku, the storyteller, connected to the audience members in a personal way. I'd like to outline Rakugo sit-down theater's importance in society and the culture of its day, examine the convention of the physicality and voice of the Rikugaku, then provide a brief overview of a Rakugo I made, and then apply my research to a moment from it. What is Rakugo sit-down theater? The exact translation of Rakugo is following words. It starts with a Rikugaku coming in, greeting the audience, wearing a traditional kimono, then proceeds to perform a monologue, usually around 30 minutes, between 2 or more characters while kneeling and only being able to use a hand towel and paper fans as props. The fan represents long objects while the towel represents flat objects. To differ the characters, the Rikugaku changed their voice, mannerisms, facial expressions, and accents to differ the characters. The monologue ends usually with a surprise punchline. The actual word for punchline is uchi, which means the drop. There are a lot of emphasis on wordplay in Rakugo. Usually there's an avoidance of vulgar language or explicit content. The humor is more sophisticated, and they do have those type of Rakugos, but they're performed at private shows. Rakugo originated from the Buddhist monks around the 9th and 10th century to make the sermons more interesting, and over time the narratives formed into monologues. One of the first forms of Rakugo was called Sisusho, which translates to laughter to banish sleep. It is very similar to the vaudeville traditional theater. Anraku Suksen was a famous Rikugaku. He was born in 1554 and he passed away in 1642. The most basic form of Rakugo is called Kabanashi, which means small story. So, Siku Susan was very famous in Rakugo, and he was very famous during the Edo period, which at that time was the most popular form of entertainment. The Edo period took place from 1603 to 1867 in Japan. For us to understand why Rakugo is still important to this day to many people, I did research on the Edo period. Historians have stated that this was 250 years of peace and prosperity in Japan. During that time, there was a rise of new merchants. Also, the external influences were closed off from westernizing influences, such as Christianity. Note that this era is the last era of the traditional Japanese government. Going back to the point of why Rakugo is important to now, many people who watch Rakugo go for the nostalgia of the Edo period that they desperately want back. The conventions I studied for Rakugo was physicality and voice. The physicality is important for Rakugo because the whole time you're on your knees and you are limited to the movement on your lower half. Another reason why your physicality is important is because same with your voice, they show your respect to the audience. The Rikugaku tries their best to try not to offend anyone during their performance. In the start of every performance, the Rikugaku bows and then proceeds to the performance. Their mannerisms are normally very open instead of closed in. An example of using your voice is how the Rikugaku talks to their audience. Instead of calling the audience an audience, they're called guests or customers, so they can build their social relationship, creating an environment where the relationship between the Rikugaku and the guests are more personal. The reason why the audience is key for the Rikugaku is because I learned that the audience makes or breaks a performance, which is the complete opposite of what I've learned. Never blame the audience for a bad show. I practice my physicality and voice by performing my moment of theater in front of my mother and my sister while having them critique me and give me advice. I also practice in front of my close friends to get being comfortable performing. I video recorded the 2 performances, seeing if there was a difference in my comfort level, and then I'm trying to mimic how I performed it. This helped me because the Rikugaku, this helped me because as a Rikugaku, I have to feel like I have a connection with the guests. The piece of theater I have chosen was a piece I created myself called The Teacher. In this piece, I discussed how I dress very similar to a teacher and how there was an instance where a student confused me for one of his teachers. In this piece, I made sure to use physicality and voice to build a connection. I would like to start. Hello everyone, thank you for coming today. You guys look wonderful today. You know, I enjoy wearing button-ups. It's kind of what I wear on the daily. People say that for my age, I dress like fairly conservatively, so they assume I look older for my actual age. So I was sitting in the library at one of the empty tables, and a student approaches me and asks, "Excuse me, can we talk?" And I said, yeah, what's your name? My name's John. Okay. You know, I'm in your B block class. I'm sorry, John, I don't think I know you. Yes, you do. I get straight A's in your class. First off, I don't know other people's grades except my own. And second, you are not in my class. You know what, Mr. C? I'm reporting you to the principal for such rude behavior. Pardon? Mr. C? The student thought I was a teacher. So what I did there was I'm gonna go back now and show how, or explain to you what I did with my voice and my physicality to kind of build that connection. So notice when I walked up, I greeted everyone and I said how they looked today, and I forget my bow, but I'm supposed to do a bow. Also, I made a connection because usually with our presentations, we have to dress pretty formally. And so it's something that's actually realistic, and I'm not just making a generalized statement. Everyone that's performing has to wear something formal. Also, I tried to make sure that I didn't say anything offensive. So with Rakugo, the Rikugaku tries to be as civil as possible, to the point where there's a bulletin board, which I'm going to do for the classmates, to kind of like something that I should not say. For example, if there's a blind man coming to watch Rakugo, they will put there's a blind man, so don't play any characters who are blind. So for this instance, my character was very generic, and same with the other. Next slide. Physicality is very important to theater because it helps you express your emotions on stage. This experience has helped me with my top half of my body and not having to rely on my lower half. I noticed that how my physicality and voice helped me go deeper into a performance, making myself and audience believe the emotion I'm trying to portray on stage. This reminds me of the study on Stanislavski. Konstantin Stanislavski developed a method of acting where it is more realistic by having the actor put their place into the character's shoes, and it makes a connection, and so the actor can make a connection to the character, making the audience feel the emotion and make it look authentic. When you're performing Rakugo, it's very similar to stand-up comedy. You want people to believe your story, because if there's not that type of connection, it won't be funny, and people won't be able to engage in your performance and kind of be taken out of the world. Because that's why people watch comedy or watch theater, or in this case, Rakugo. In conclusion, Rakugo sit-down theater is more than just comedy. It helps people escape their reality and explore into the nostalgia world where it's filled with peace.